the UN that were flying over this group of protesters in Zimbabwe, and there was a guy holding a sign, and the sign said, "I'm the world's poorest billionaire," and he had billions in his nation's currency, but the inflation rate was so high that those billions would not buy anything that he needed. All right? He was extremely poor, regardless of how much actual physical dollar money, the currency that he had. This was also seen, if y'all have covered U.S. histories yet, but this was seen in the early years in the Weimar Republic in Germany. After World War I, Germany was forced to accept what was called the War Guilt Clause, and they had to basically pay back reparations for the war. They had to accept responsibility for World War I, and they had to pay back nations like Britain and France for basically what the war cost them. All right, $33 billion in reparations. It was something that they just paid off in 2010, by the way. But anyway, because of that being implemented, all right, and because of those reparations having to take place, their basic solution was, hey, we don't have enough to pay back Britain and France, let's just print more money. Well, when you print more money, that is pouring a ton more money into the economy that is not necessarily backed up. It is flooding the market with that currency that is, again, decreasing the value of it. And there are pictures of there's pictures of little kids that are out there playing in the street with bundles and stacks of money because their money is basically useless. It was actually at one point more beneficial for them to use their paper currency as a source of burning, as a heating source, than it was to actually buy something with that money. Looking at bread at 4 billion marks or something like that. Between 1919, when the war actually ends, when World War I ends, in 1919 it took 173 German marks to purchase 1 ounce of gold. 4 years later, all right, 1923, to buy that same 1 ounce of gold, it cost 87 trillion marks. Okay, so that is massively hyperinflation. Okay, again, when you have an economic situation like that taking place in the nation, even though things did get better under the Weimar Republic, people are willing to listen to anybody who comes along who has a plan of how to increase production, how to decrease inflation, and how to basically provide a better life for the citizens. And so that's the message that Adolf Hitler was basically espousing when he came to power. That's why people were willing to listen to him. That's what kind of drew people to him, was rebuilding the glory and the power economically of Germany. All right, and then last but not least, down here at the bottom, I have deflation. Okay, deflation is the opposite of inflation. Okay, deflation means you're at a period where your money may be worth a certain amount relative to another currency or relative to gold. That's how we've used it in the past. And then let's say that the purchasing power of that currency has increased. Okay, so the dollar in our case would be stronger. Okay, the dollar would, let's say, for example, the power of the dollar increases, and so you can buy more with that dollar. This sounds like a good thing. It is just as bad as inflation. Okay, reason being is because it doesn't just happen in a bubble. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. Because you have deflation occurring, you have at the same time the purchasing power of the dollar increasing throughout the economy. Okay, so there's less of that currency, there's less money to go around, there's a shorter supply of the dollar, which is increasing the value of it, but that increases the price of certain goods, raw materials that businesses are having to use to produce their goods. It increases the raw materials where they are obtained from. It is going to increase wages as well, which really can't be kept up with. And so what you generally see happening during deflation is high periods of unemployment. Okay? So all of these are examples of inflation except for deflation. And with creeping inflation, this is generally where we want to stay. Again, this is where we are pretty much right now. Okay, so make sure we know what inflation is. Now jumping over here to the other side, unemployment. Okay, just talked about it down here. When you have periods of unemployment, this can be bad, right? And generally, when we talk about a business cycle, all right, whether you're talking about an economic contractionary period, all right, whether you're talking about the trough period, sometimes, and I'll draw this out here to the, I think, yeah, you'll still be able to see it. All right. Sometimes you might have a business cycle that looks like that, okay, where you had an expansionary period, all right, you peaked here, and then something happened with the economy, all right? Something happened to dramatically drop in the economy, to cause a massive contractionary period, and then down here there is no recovery, okay? This could be known as a recession, okay? And depending on the severity and the length of that recession, it could be also known as a depression. Okay? Now with a recession a recession versus depression, okay, severity and length of time, okay, are your two big indicators as far as was it an actual recession or was it a depression. With recessions, you generally see unemployment rates higher than average, okay? But it's not, like, I'm gonna compare it here in just a second to the Great Depression, okay? Recessions usually last, 6 months or less. Now I know what you're thinking. We just got out of a recession that lasted back in from 2007 up through about 2015, 2016. And it's good that we're pulling out of it. However, that recession, it lasted a very long period of time. But what we saw happen was there were high periods of unemployment, okay? And it got bad in areas, but there was a recovery effort. It was just that we kind of stayed low. There was not a lot of economic growth. Really between 2008 and 2016, we saw the economy growing at about 1%, which is not very good. That's the first time that's happened in our nation's history, where we haven't experienced an economic growth of over 1% throughout those years. And so it was pretty bad, all right? But it was not nearly as bad as far as severity as compared to the Depression. During the height of our recession from 2007 to I'd say 14, 15, what you generally saw happen were unemployment rates at its peak about 15%, right? 15% as compared to, let's say, the Great Depression that we went to in the 1930s at about 25%, okay? Now, and over the 1930s, by the way, all right, starting with the stock market crash is more so a result than an actual cause of the Great Depression. But when the stock market crashes, over the period of that next year, and really starting in 1930, this is when we start to see the Great Depression taking place. And the Depression lasts pretty much up until we get drawn into World War II, all right, which was 11 years later. So from 1930 till about 1941, we're in the midst of this Great Depression. Again, unemployment rates at 25%, okay? A quarter of the nation's workforce unable to find work. That only leads to a worse economic condition because you don't have people that are working that can pour money back into the economy, so this is bad. And the Depression did last a long time, so again, length of time and severity, all right, those are your two indicators. Now, there are several different types of unemployment that people could experience, okay? First and foremost, by the way, when we're talking about unemployment and what that means, okay? Unemployment means that you are able to work and that you are willing to work and that you are actively looking to find a job, all right? Those are the people that factor into a nation's unemployment rate. You have an unemployment rate that's provided to you. You can get on the government website and find out our nation's current unemployment rate, which is somewhere around 4%. But at the same, when we're talking about unemployment, you also have people who are able to work, who are not working, or who are not looking for a job. You have people who are just kind of falling through the cracks of our economic system. and you have, basically what is reported as our unemployment rate, and then you have a true, real unemployment rate, okay? Again, during our last recession, unemployment rates got to about 15%. You would probably put that real number at around 18%, okay? And again, that would be people who can work but are not looking for a job, okay? We'll get into reasons why that is here later on. But anyway, when we talk about unemployment, so you have lost your job through no faults of your own, okay? You cannot file for unemployment. You cannot be considered to be unemployed if you walk in and you punch your boss and you get fired, all right? That does not qualify you for unemployment. You have to have lost your job through no fault of your own, okay? You have to actively be looking for a job, and you're actually able to work, all right? Those are your 3 conditions that will put you somewhere in these 4 types of unemployment, okay? So when we're talking about unemployment, generally, seasonal and frictional unemployment, these are the 2 that you are likely to experience at some point in your life, okay? These are not necessarily bad. They're just a cause of what goes on. For example, when we talk about seasonal unemployment, let's say that it's getting close to Christmas time, okay? The malls are hiring up a bunch of people, okay? Let's say that you graduated in December, you're out there looking for a job, you get a job, you're working at Macy's, all right, you're helping with the Christmas rush, and then after the Christmas season, after return season as well, then you get hit with a layoff, all right? They can no longer afford to keep you on there since you were one of the last people hired during the seasonal rush. You're one of the first that are going to be let go. So you were experiencing seasonal unemployment, all right? You were employed during a particular season where you saw a lot of business, and now you have lost that job. Now, again, you would have had to have been working a full-time job, all right, to be considered, again, unemployed. But I mean, if that is you, okay, you would be experiencing seasonal unemployment. And again, hopefully that is not going to be too heavily impacting, and it won't last a long time, okay? If I jump down here to frictional, all right, frictional is another one of those things that you might experience at some point in your life, and again, it's not a big deal, okay? This is just how we classify it, how economists will classify it. So when we talk about frictional unemployment, then you're basically experiencing a transitional phase. Either you graduated college, you have a job lined up, you're about to start in 2 months, all right? I'm just throwing that number out there. But you're about to start work here in 2 months, but during that 2-month period, you do not have a job because you're transitioning from college to the workforce. That's frictional unemployment. If you're changing jobs, you have to put in your 2 weeks notice, all right? Let's say that a new restaurant's opening in town, you're a full-time waiter or waitress. New restaurant's opening in town, they had a job fair, you go and you apply there, you get hired, all right? The restaurant's still being built, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw out another 2-month idea. So in 2 months, that restaurant's gonna be open, all right? But you gotta put in your 2-week notice with your current job, right? So as it gets closer to the time period, you put in your 2-week notice. All right, you work out your 2-week notice, you leave your job, okay? During that transitional period, in between the job that you left and the job that you're about to start, that is also frictional unemployment. Again, not a big deal, okay? These 2, you're likely to experience. Again, you probably will not be filing for unemployment in these areas, but this is just kind of what happens and how we classify them with unemployment. These 2 are more of what we see with unemployment, okay? Starting with structural unemployment. Structural unemployment means that there are jobs out there in the economy that are available, all right, but you or the person who is looking for a job, they don't have the necessary skill set to obtain those jobs, okay? So let's say that jobs are really tight, all right, there's not a lot of jobs out there, not a lot of jobs to be had, but the nursing field is growing, all right, the nursing field is really doing well. So is computers, so is the technology field. Okay, so nursing and technology, if you want a job when you graduate college, those are the fields that you probably need to look into. I graduated with a history major, okay? I'm not getting a technology job, I'm not getting a a nursing job. So when I graduate, if there are no teaching positions available, all right, if there's no history spots available, then I might